I'm going to give you 3 easy ways to start building self-acceptance, but most of importantly, how that starts is by noticing and rewiring our unhelpful thinking patterns. Now, so often we can find ourselves in this space of having negative thoughts, unhelpful thoughts. Half the time we don't even know that's going on, but they impact us on such a massive level, impact our mood, impact the confidence we have in ourselves, and then of course the actions that we go on to take. But even just the basics, right, of how we feel inside all start here. And we have this tendency as humans to almost get wrapped in this downward spiral with our thoughts. You've probably been there. There's a thought, it's unhelpful, but you can't let it go. And we know what we focus on grows. So that unhelpful thought becomes massive because we've paid it so much attention. Then it starts to have those big impacts our mood. Then the result, the actions that we take or don't take, the things we don't say, the things we don't do, the way we underrate ourselves or question ourselves or just overthink everything we do, the way we so often don't feel good enough. So this is the doorway to self-acceptance. And so here's 3 easy ways to stop those unhelpful thinking patterns, to rewire the brain from those negative thinking patterns to something more positive. We have to notice the thought, first of all. Most of the time, the things we're thinking, we don't even know. We're not even aware of what's going on in our head until it gets big, until it starts to have those negative impacts that we've talked about. So noticing what's going on there is so key. And to do that, we have to pause, we have to stop, we have to get our face out of our social media and our devices and be present for a moment just to notice what is going on in our brain. Because when we notice the thought, we can then do something about it. And step 2, of course, is then doing something about it. How do we reframe, rewire? How do we break the circuit, break the pattern? So once we've noticed the thought, it's then an opportunity to go, I can see I'm comparing myself to that person at work again, or I can see that I'm feeling not good enough, or I'm criticizing the way I look, or whatever the murrain of things we overthink about ourselves goes on in your brain. Noticing it gives us the opportunity to then reframe it. So a really good example of, not just being able to re-divert these thinking patterns, but also to reframe them is to replace it with something else. So rather than thinking about the person at work that's doing better than I am, how can we reframe that to either celebrate in their success or just to know we're on a different journey, or to reframe it and go, yeah, God, they're doing really well at the moment. They're really successful, but they've been in their career 5 years longer than me. When we reframe it, we break the pattern and we get ourselves out of that unhelpful spiral where we can then make it too big. So the next step, and the third, is how do we focus on the positives? Now, we know this to be true because there's been so much science done in the gratitude space. We know that the brain will rewire itself. And if we think of positive things often enough, that becomes our default setting without us even having to ask the brain to do it. So this applies in the same way. So what we're doing is we're training our brain to notice more of the positives. And that can be as simple as, what am I grateful for today? What's one thing that went well yesterday? When we start getting ourselves into this habit, it becomes our default state. So knowing that what we focus on grows, the good and the bad, noticing our thoughts so that we can do something about it. Reframing, interrupting those patterns and redirecting those thinking patterns from the negative to the positive, and training our brain to look for more positives. Now, this doesn't mean that our life changes. There will still be bad things and good things that happen in our life because that's part of having a human life. But what it means is our reaction to it will be different. We'll have more control over our brain. We'll be able to regulate our emotions, and our response to the good and the bad that comes up in our life will be much more productive as a result. This is probably one of the most important lessons I learned from my time with Buddhist monks and nuns that I've written about in my books. And it's something that I'm continually coming back to. When we have control over our mind, when we can re-engineer our thinking patterns and we can train our brain for positivity, everything else in our life changes.